right. Recording now. Yes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back if you are a returning subscriber, and welcome if you're a new visitor to the channel. Yeah, it's been a little while since our last book talk with the author, so I'm really excited about this as we start a new season, and perhaps this will be a new series because our guest today is a returning guest, and we have today with us John Martin Sr. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you just taking the time to meet with me again.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here again. Last time was a lot of fun, so I'm pretty sure this will be fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was informative. That's what I got out of it. And I had a commenter maybe like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I mentioned this to you when we got back in touch, who was just like, thank you so much. I got a lot from that video. This gentleman, he really helped me with like just brainstorming and figuring out how to do what I need to do. So just from that one video, which like we made, I think it was literally last October, or it was like a year ago.
Yeah, it was around this time last year, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, just getting feedback a whole year later, from that video, it speaks volumes. So I just want to thank you and keep doing what you're doing. I'm really excited about this one too, because like I said, I haven't done this in a while. So, perhaps this will be a new series where we just talk to the author and follow up and see like what's on the horizon. What are you getting into? What have you gotten into since the last time that we spoke? And even with our last interview, or I don't want to call it an interview. Like, these are book talks. This is
Our last talk.
Yeah, the last talk we talked about specifically your children's book, and we discussed the powerful message in that children's book, which, especially for it to come out. Did you release that in 2020? It was 2020?
I released that in, I think, 2019, I think.
2019. Okay, well, still, for the time period, it just had a message that I really admired, where, the power is in you. It's always going to be within you. The magical, super duper powers, is it human powers? Magical?
Human. Yep.
Human powers of Rodney, the ordinary kid. Yeah.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, the message was powerful. But in addition, during that book talk, you touched on, your book series, and then you kind of talked about 40 Jewels, which then was an upcoming project. So today we're going to get to talk about those books in more detail. Right. And yeah, like I'm delighted. I'm ready to go into it. But first, let's just, for anyone who doesn't know you, let's take a little bit of your background and how did you get into writing?
Okay, sounds good. Just real brief. I was born in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm still currently there. I love the city. I love the support I get. I love the people. It's a really good area. But I got into writing at an early age because I had a problem with my speech. And I was humiliated one day in class in second grade. And that haunted me for years. So I stopped being so verbal or trying to talk. Trying to communicate, and I shut down and I just started writing my emotions and everything. From that point on, I would really be engaged with writing, but making it like becoming an author, I just came to the point in my life where I wanted to slow down a little bit, not run around so much and be, hands-on, but I wanted to be able to touch so many people by just, sending my words. So I started writing that children's book that you spoke about, and then after that, I wanted to really touch parents and tell some of the problems, the issues that I had being a parent, being a young parent. So I wanted to really touch young parents and give them some advice, or give them something that they can look at and use for a reference and say, hey, he made that mistake. Let's not do that with our kids. So nice. So that was a big part of me writing. But since then, since last year, it's been a super fast year. I've been able to co-host a TEDx talk here in Des Moines, or there in Des Moines. I'm in Vegas now. but there in Des Moines, and I released the 40 Jewels book, which is part 1 through 20, which is just 40 life lessons that I've learned. I'm just basically telling my story, telling my journey of, being biracial, growing up in around drugs, selling drugs, changing my mindset from that background, changing my mindset to become a parent and make that a priority. Just all kinds of different things I learned along my way in life. I also released, prior to that, I released the 8 Conversations That I Have With Yourself. So I have a 4-book series.
Yeah.
I know I'm talking all over the place, but
I got into that.
Yep, I got a 4-book series. It's called 8 Conversations to Have.
Right.
The website is 8conversationsToHave.com. And what that basically is just, I just took 8 conversations to have with your son, or 8 conversations to have with your daughter, 8 conversations to have with yourself, and 8 conversations to have with your co-parent. So that's a 4-pack series. It's a family empowerment pack. And it's just, encouraging better conversation, or not, I wouldn't say better, but just different conversations, more conversations that provoke an understanding of each other, instead of just perspective, one-sided view, because we're all different, and we just need to learn to communicate better now, especially in this time period where it's a social media driven world. It's technology driven, and a lot of we interact nowadays with text messages, which are just like WID, what you doing, and we're not really elaborating with certain people. We just don't have the time, really. A lot of us are busy working 2 to 3 different jobs, and just trying to fulfill our dreams in other ways. And I think a lot of us are missing that key in conversing with the people around us and getting understanding.
I agree wholeheartely. Everything you just now said, I just thought of something that I was writing a couple of days ago. I just, like you, I'll write what's on my mind. And I wrote down something about how small the world has gotten in the last several years or decades, even with technological advances. But even as it's gotten smaller and we're able to communicate so quickly, and even short-handedly, text messages and whatnot, it's like we're not communicating on a deeper level with each other.
We're not. And
go ahead.
Oh, and to add to that, even with just being able to communicate on a deeper level and understand the other person's perspective. Being able to be in someone else's shoes, like I think we're missing that human side. Like everything, like this, business is numbers, strictly numbers. There's no emotions to it and anything. And to me, I think that we need more of a balance. We need more of a balance. Like, for example, one of the conversations that I have in 8 Conversations to Have with Your Co-Parent is just basically, like, I remember times when 20 years ago, when my son was born, and that early stage of me just becoming a parent, his mother just becoming a parent. I didn't know anything about postpartum depression. I didn't know anything about like real things that happen emotionally being a father. Like, I was going through mine. I wasn't really sure on how to be a man, so to speak, and this and that. So there were so many different things that if we would have just talked a little more. Now, I'm saying that we would have been together today, but we would have had a better relationship for our son, and a lot of times we have better conversations with our coworker at work than we do with the co-parent that we created a life with, so it's just, it's a way to just step back and say, okay, I did this, I created life, let me get her perspective and her, get my perspective, and we could just bounce off each other and really come to the common goal of our child being a priority, our child being, what we have to pour into 100%.
Of course, and that's your investment. and
Yeah.
not financial investment, like, you know, your personal, their emotional growth. You want to make sure that you get a return that
Yeah.
is worthy of global citizenship. Like, you know,
Right. Right. And you're so right. When you bring up investment, you know, that's an investment with everybody too. You know, and that's why I'm saying, you know, 8 conversations that have even with yourself. Like, you got to invest that time into yourself and tell yourself the right things, and you know, provoke thought to yourself, and make sure that you're on the same, you're on the right path, you're on the right page. Because, you know, for example, if I tell you, you know, hey, you are a beautiful lady, but if you don't believe that, whatever you telling yourself on a day-to-day trumps whatever anybody can tell you.
It's true.
So you know, you know, even with just accepting a compliment can be turmoil within, because you're not in tune with you, or you haven't spent that time with yourself and got to a better understanding of who you are. So, you know, there's times where I might say, hey, you know, I like that shirt you got on. Oh, this old raggedy thing, you know, something like that. Really? Like, accept it, you know, and but you said,
I know, I'm just saying, embrace it. Like, the whole idea of, you know, we all have our insecurities, but finding a way to, you know, get through those challenges of how you view yourself and how you view others, and allow yourself to really feel, because you're in control of your emotions. So, you know, I want to ask you about the series. So, because you have four, and I'm really excited. I'm getting the one, 8 conversations to have with yourself. It should have come this week. Hopefully, I'll get it this week. But can you tell me a little bit about the order of these? Because what came first? How did you decide on it? How long did it take you to put these together? Like, what was the first one?
Okay, so the first one was 8 conversations I had with you, and I wanted to make it short and sweet, because I visualize people on planes and having something to read on a plane, and then by the time they land, they could close the book and say, okay, I finished that, and I got a lot out of it, and it just has me in a good mindset while I get off this plane and go, you know, conquer the world, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that was my mindset for the creation of how small it is, and how there's no filler. It's just straight, intentional. Every sentence is intentional. It's to the point, you know. So when I started that one, 8 conversations I had with your son, it just was a huge hit for me. Like, people were bombarding me for it because they started seeing the reviews for it, and I could tell that a lot of people were impacted by it. So I said, and then people were like, "Well, if you got one for the sons, you got to do one for the daughters." And I was so reluctant to continue with that one, because I struggle with I struggle with my daughter. You know, I love her to death, but it's just back and forth. Like, it's those conversations. I don't know if people would have been ready for that. You know, so I went immediately to 8 conversations I had with your co-parent, because I seen parents pouring in. I seen parents. I say, oh, well, let me tell some more of my thoughts about what I could have did differently, and you know, so that's how that came about. And then I knew in my mind, I knew at some point I would have to write the 8 conversations I had with your daughter. But then the next step was, man, let me hit people with 8 conversations I had with yourself, because then I started getting the questions like, how are you writing these books so fast? How are you doing this? How do you do everything I do? Because, you know, I have several other business ventures that I'm linked to. So you know, people would always ask me. So I said, well, let me break down what I tell myself, and where I've gotten myself to in order to endure so much. And so these are 8 conversations that, you know, that put me on game, that really, you know, was impactful for me to sit back and really do. So I thought that was important. I also think that the 8 conversations that I have with yourself is important for any parent, for anybody that needs to just come to an understanding of what's next for you.
I agree.
you
Yeah.
know, and so they're just real small eight conversations. Like eight conversations that with yourself is like 60 pages. It's like 60 pages, but if you read the reviews, it's valuable. People will tell you that, you know, even though it's short and sweet, it's exactly what the doctor ordered. So
Exactly. And I like that. You mentioned that before when we were talking about the children's book, but you were like, you know, it's kind of these short readers, but they're packed. You know, they
yeah,
come with some problem solving kind of techniques, and I mean, when you have a product, you know, that's what you want. You need to make sure that you're solving some kind of issues or problems that people have in their life, but also you're giving value to
yeah,
their existence. And that's what I get from the series that you've written. And that's what it seems that, you know, the people who do buy this book and read the book, they're also getting something extremely valuable out of it, because it's like it's not bombarding them with too much information that they're just like, I don't even know where to start now that I've just read that book. Like, where do I
yeah.
start? So
Right.
smart strategy that you have, actually.
Thank you, and I appreciate you picking up on that too, because you know some people you know have said, hey, they're really short, but once they read it, they're like, oh, okay, I get it now. And the other thing is too is that, you know, I try not to talk over anybody. I talk, you know, just plain as day, just casual conversations as I write, because I want people to just really get into it. Like, you know, I read. What got on my nerves for years is that, you know, I'll read books, and some authors would just, there were so many different ways to condense what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
and it would have hit me way harder if they would have just said it with a pow instead of taking me around the whole circle with these big old words, which I understand the words, but there's no need for them.
I
You know, it's like,
agree.
so sometimes, you know, the recipe calls for just regular language. Like, let's just talk. You know, let's you know, I've been told, you know, when people read my book, they actually hear my voice, and it's like we're having a conversation. So I think that is extremely beneficial. And where I picked that up from, me personally, where I picked that up from was Damon John. When I read his book Rise to Grind, I was sitting on a plane and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, man, I hear it. Like, it's like he's talking to me. So that instantly changed me. And I don't know if I spoke on that before or not, but
No,
uh,
you didn't mention that. No.
okay. But
But
yeah, that was powerful for me. Like, so things started clicking with me, because sometimes I had to read stuff over and over and over to grasp it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
I
so
like,
that
yeah, I like your approach to writing this series, because it hits the market, it hits the literature market in a in a different kind of aspect. Like we just now said, these shorter, to the point, and after you read it, you can go and have a conversation with someone, or you can start writing down your own thoughts and kind of just getting what's on your mind out, you know,
yeah, exactly.
like marinating in whatever it is that you're feeling or whatever limitations that you're having. Like, you just go, and now you finished reading, go and act on it. Go and,
Go ahead.
you know,
Yep, exactly.
do something
And
real.
then yeah, so it's like a launch pad. Like, each conversation is open ended. So they're open for your own perspectives. I write it telling my story, telling what I was thinking at the time of certain situations,
Yeah.
telling what I went through during certain situations, as in hopes for whoever reading takes it and thinks about that perspective as well as their own, and starts a conversation with somebody else to pick up on that conversation and get someone else's perspective. So it's like a never ending type of scenario for
Right.
each.
So, okay, now that you've said that, I kind of I don't know, that just made me think of something else, because I wanted to talk about like the business side of this, but
Mhm.
uh, hold on, I'm having a bit of a brain fart real quick.
Oh, no, no worries. No worries.
What was I gonna mention? Because I want to jump into 40 Jewels. Let me look at the notes. Talking about a story. So, like, I want to ask you this about 40 Jewels as well, but let's stick to the series real quick. When you're telling, or you're dropping these tidbits words of advice, or, you know, having these 8 conversations, are you also telling like is there a storytelling aspect to it? Or are you kind of just like, you know, is there like
Yeah,
a list? Like how?
yeah. What I try to do is take the reader. I try to explain my thought process, my point to begin with. I try to come right off and say what my point is, and then I'll tell a story explaining my point from like an actual experience. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. One of the jewels is comfortability will kill you. Being comfortable will kill you. And
Powerful.
one scenario that I give in the book is when I was younger, I worked at a call center, and I was friends with this guy. He was a little older. Now, mind you, I'm like 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
And he was like 30 years old. But I looked up to him. I'm like, man, this guy really got it going on. He had a really good plan about how he wanted to maneuver. See, me, at that time, I was involved with other activities outside of me working. So I didn't really care about the money from the job. I didn't really care about the job. I just needed something on paper.
Right.
If that,
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this guy like, man, this guy is really on the ball. He had aspirations of being a manager, and I sat right next to him. So as I'm telling the story about how I'm sitting right next to this guy, and at my desk, I don't have anything, nothing. If you walk by my desk, you would think no one worked there. Like, it's just an empty cubicle. His cubicle, man, he was a big Bears fan. He had a big old Chicago Bear with a jersey on it, and he had all kinds of pictures of his wife and his 2 kids and the dog, and he had so much stuff on. It looked like a living room. His cubicle looked like minus the couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I'm like, man, he's, I just never knew that perspective before. So this is how I break that down to comfortability, right? Being comfortable is the difference between me and him at that time was I was there. My mindset was, okay, I'm gonna do this job, but it's temporary. He's in the mindset of moving up the ladder. Like, he's on this. Now, mind you, he was really enthused. He was there every day on time, but he was relaxed, as you could tell. Like, why else would he have all this stuff there, right? So, just to speed along through the story, before he hit 6 months, he got fired.
Oh, wow.
He got fired for attendance. And during this time period, I'm sitting at my desk. They're putting all his stuff in a box, throwing all his stuff in a box like it's nothing. Wow. The manager at the time is throwing his stuff in a box. They putting it all up. He gets fired. I talked to him like, we're still friends and stuff. And I talked to him, and he doesn't know what to do. He got fired prior to the 6 months. Once you hit 6 months, you get unemployment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he didn't even get unemployment. But he put his all into this. He got comfortable being there. On an aspect of me, my perspective was, man, I'm gonna do this job, but man, they're not going to control my livelihood. They're not going to. They're not going to control me to the point where I'm giving them all of me without anything on the back end, without a plan B, without a plan C, without something else in line. And I'm not going to put my belongings here because this is not my place. This is only 8 hours of my day. I'm not comfortable. I'm not ever going to be comfortable here because it's not my company. Mm-hmm. So that was my perspective going into it. And for me to see someone else's perspective of, man, I'm relaxed. I'm gonna be here for the next 40 years. I'm gonna work for the next years and move up to like that mindset was too comfortable for me. So that's what I meant by, that can really harm you, being in a situation that you don't control. You don't control that situation at all. You can't get comfortable. I mean, we see people my mom worked for 30 years for a company, and she got really, really sick with this C. diff virus, and her insurance took care of her, but she ran out of PTO time and everything, and she realized that they didn't care about her.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a rude awakening.
so yeah, it's a rude awakening. So at that age, I'm like, that stuck with me. I'm like, nah, I can't never be that way. So I ended up working for years. I worked for Wells Fargo for 12 years. I never had anything on my cubicle. I never got comfortable. I knew that I was disposable. I knew that. But there's people out here that just really are in a mindset of just letting someone else provide comfort for them, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I do agree with you 100% on that one. And I mean, I've fallen victim myself, to be honest. You know, it's the same thing. A lot of it just comes from, we're just not taught to be anything but workers or, you know, employees.
Yeah.
Go through school and
Mm-hmm.
college, you know, all of this. And really, we're just taught to work for someone. We're not taught how to be go-getters or self-starters or entrepreneurs and you know, even
But
look.
even
Yeah.
yeah, but even if you're not an entrepreneur or self-starter or motivator, I mean, anytime that you're just comfortable, you know, it's like for example, I didn't watch TV for years. Like that's like sitting there watching TV. Like sometimes that can you know, some people get into the routine of whatever their routine is. They get stuck into that routine, and it's hard to get out of that routine. So a lot of times you got to really think about what you're spending your time doing, how you're going about spending your time, and is it productive? Is it something that um, that you're just trained into doing routine, and are you really even paying attention that you're on autopilot for your life? I mean, this is your life that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for big periods of time, some people are just on autopilot, just going through the motions with it, whichever the wind blows, that's where they're going. And they're just it's a sense of being comfortable. And you know, depending on, I mean, you know, to each his own. Nothing's wrong with that. It's just there's a different perspective, there's a different light, there's a different way to do things.
Yeah.
And you know, I just want to share a different way, because you know, I would hate for somebody to, and it happens all the time, but I would hate for somebody to just get hit with a rude awakening when it's too late, when they're already 4 or 5 years deep into your mind and body being stagnant, and you know, and now it's you to shake it out, and it might be too late. It might take you a little bit too long to get out of that, you know. So
Yeah, that complacency is a drug. It's a
yeah.
it definitely is for a lot of people. Even, you know, after a full day of work, to come home and like you have bigger goals and dreams.
Mm-hmm.
People have these ideas and they want to like make them and turn them into something, but they're so tired. They're so tired
Yeah.
from work. So it's just like, oh, let me just Netflix and
Mm-hmm.
Netflix and before you know
Yeah.
it, Netflix for like 6 hours, and that turns into a
Yeah.
daily occurrence for some people. And it's like, what
Yep.
value did you get from that? And there's nothing wrong with Netflix. I watch Netflix quite often,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what value are you getting from it, and what do you see, you know, long term for yourself? Like, what do you want? So I hear what you're saying as far as that comfortability being it can mess you up. And that I like the way that you turned it into a story, because I was curious about that for the series. When I get it, I'm gonna be looking into it. I'm really excited about reading both of your books. I got 40 Jewels, and you said 40. So the first part of 40 Jewels is
it's just 1 through 20. So basically I'm giving uh more of like a look to of my business ventures, stuff like that. Part 2 is 21 through 40, and it's going to be a red cover, and I'm looking towards the past. See, on this book cover, I'm looking towards the future. So so it's more of like a lot of the topics I talk about is just being prepared with a mindset of knowing the people around you when you're dealing with business, when you're dealing with, you know, certain things of that nature. Part two is more like an in-depth look of me and the traumas I went through as growing up. You know, a lot of the, and that's why I made it red. Like it's a little more gory. I want to say, is that a word? Gory?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's not, you know, sometimes when you say a word and then it just doesn't sound right. Like you heard it before, then you're like, or when you write a word down, it doesn't look like it's spelled right, but it is. That was a moment for me.
Yeah, I had a moment yesterday. I was looking at a website and they spelled mystery MISTER. But I was like, wait, no, I know I'm right. I know I'm right. Mystery is really MY. So
Yeah, definitely.
so I'm like, I know I have those moments too, but this time I'm right. This time I am right. Mystery is spelled wrong. It's incorrectly on this website. But I know what you're talking about. Gory.
Yeah,
This one, it's heavy. This second part two is going to be a little bit heavier.
yeah, it's a little bit heavier because you know my background. I mean, you know, it's probably pretty typical, you know, but my perspective on it, and you know, some of the situations are rare, but the overall picture, like I grew up in a house in a drug house, like that's, you know, millions of people across the lands have experienced that. But
did they document it? That's where your uniqueness comes in. It comes into play because it's like, you know, we all have a story. It's just, you know, did you share your story? And you're sharing yours.
Yeah, and I've had some really good feedback off of the 40 Jewels, and I during the process of me writing it, and one reason why I split it up too, and I'll explain in detail in part two, is that during the process, my stepdad died.
Yeah.
He died from cancer.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it was like,
sorry.
So thank you. So when that happened, and he's like my biological dad because he's been in my life since I was 5. And even after my mom and dad got divorced my stepdad and my mom got divorced in 1998, to this to, you know, up until the day he died, he was very, very instrumental in my life. Very, very, like, we talked daily. Like, that was my dad. You know what I'm saying? So when I lost him back in April, I was finishing up the 40 Jewels. And then my whole perspective on a lot of situations changed because it gave me a chance to really, you know, anytime you experience death, it's like you go through a grieving process, you go through the reflections of all kinds of different situations, and then you come out of it with different thoughts, different perspectives on things, and that was huge. So I had to rewrite some of it, and I go into part two explaining that some of this is my thoughts pre my dad's death, and some of these thoughts are after my dad's death, and how I'm transparent and able to change my way of thinking and allow people to experience that with me because I'm human. You know what I mean? Like some of the thought processes that I had before my dad dying I have a totally different outlook now. I have a totally different outlook, and I would never, and I look back and I'm like, man, I really was thinking like that, but the lessons over the years that my dad taught me, I finally had a chance to dig into those and understand why he was telling me these things at the times when he told them. You know, when we kids, we don't listen to anything ready. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Until we're ready to listen. And it just hit me. I mean, everything's about timing. Everything happens for a reason. And when he passed, it was just like, it changed my whole world. So,
I mean, in a way, for you to be able to take that and turn it into something that people can look at and see your just the evolution of thought, personal growth. I really like that you were able to at least, you know, take a sad situation but a beautiful one. Like I love the way that you just described your father. to take that and then turn it into literature for people to, absorb and take from it what you can, and know that it's okay to
Mhm.
find yourself like changing your own opinions on like major life
Yeah.
anything. It's okay. This is what happened to me. So, I want to ask you though, like about if the series, because the way it sounds to me is that while you were putting these series together, it sounds like over the course of several months or years even,
Mhm.
it led you to 40 Jewels. Is that the case? Like, did
It
40
is.
Jewels kind of come, like, did you birth 40 Jewels from like all of these, reflections with 8 conversation series?
Yeah, it definitely, they're definitely intertwined. Like it's I turned 40 last year, so I was like, man. And every year on my birthday, I take a long time and process the last year and think about all the things I want to do in the future, all the things that I've done that year and how I could make the year better. And it's just, and last year I was like, man, I need to just write a lot of the things that I've learned over the years. And I think that now, since I'm seeing the feedback of my books, see, I never really would have thought about it until I seen the feedback. Once I seen the feedback of the books and the interaction that I'm getting, and people really like tuned in, like buying the whole series. Like they're not just buying one book, they're buying 3 copies for their aunt, or it's crazy how people are really, really into these. So I'm like, man, I got a story. Let me tell my story then. Let me tell people, let me go more in depth, because man, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But the other thing is, if it's helping people, why not? Why not keep it going? Why not, continue to tell my story? And it helps me too. Because at 50, I'm gonna write 50 jewels, and it's gonna be a totally different perspective of the 40 jewels that I learned at 40. It's just a never ending process, and it keeps me on point too. It keeps me on my square, because when it holds me accountable. Because if somebody reads me out in public and I'm not exercising, or I'm not in a line with what I'm saying in my book, then I'm faulty. I'm not. That's fake. You know what I mean? So that's online too. So when somebody sees me in public and they know me and they know my story and they read my story, and they know me from the sandbox, then they and like, he's official. He's not out here playing. But
Yeah.
but also it helps me too, because just the other day I had to get into my 8 conversation to have with yourself. I had to read that again, and once I read it again, it just gave me energy. It boosted my energy up big time. So
See, that's good. I like what you just now said too about accountability, and
yeah.
because I mean, when I first met you, you were already kind of into the whole brand building, but now, like, I've watched you, John. I've watched you over the last like year, and just building on top of these projects that you're working on. And gosh, I don't know why I keep having so many brain farts. Where was I with that?
It's
But
early.
yeah, perhaps that's what it is. But
Yeah.
I see with 40 Jewels, I see so much potential, and the idea of taking it to the next level, but using the 8 conversation series. This is what I was going to say. When you first started with when we were talking in our last book talk, we were obviously talking about the children's book and these other books that were on the horizon, or you have already put out there somewhat, but you were talking about this feedback that you were getting from, or that you weren't quite getting as much feedback from the children's book, but a lot of that comes from the parental involvement. Like, the book is for the children, and the
Yeah.
parents, perhaps they'll get to writing a review. Maybe they'll get around to it. So that led you to the series, producing these books, and then you started to get some feedback, valuable feedback that then seems
Yeah.
to feed you. It feeds your ambitious nature as it relates to these books, and keeps you on your toes. Like, all right, I'm really building a brand here. Let me
Yeah.
stay true to myself and my word.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, because I'm looking at you. I'm definitely taking note. And anyone who watches this, I hope that you do take note as well, because this is a process. That was something else that you mentioned in that book talk. You were like, don't rush it. Give
Yeah,
yourself realistic. I forget how you worded it, but you were just like, be real with yourself and your obligations, and don't
yeah,
rush.
definitely, definitely, because you know the thing. Well, one thing I talk about a conversation to have with yourself is momentum, and that is huge. That's very, very powerful when you think about self-starting and being motivated and wanting to take projects and wanting to do this and that and this. You have to have your momentum on high.
Yeah.
All, and any slight hesitation, any slight break in your momentum, which can come from a friend, which can come from a setback in life, anything that comes from that, um, it delays your process. so when we talk about being real and when we talk about wanting to give ourselves time to tackle these projects, the worst thing we could do is say, okay, I want to be done with this in 30 days. And then we start moving, because at that moment we feel really, really geeked about it. But something might happen that week that sets us back, and we stay, and then that 30 days approaches and we didn't hit our goal. Man, that kills our moment. That kills us. That makes us, that disappoints us. And then that allows for even more procrastination. And then the next surge that we get, the next boost of energy we get is not even from that project anymore. It's from a totally different project. And now we're putting energy into that project because our momentum's going. And now this one's tucked. This one's put on the back burner, because if we would have just gave ourselves realistic goals from the jump and said, you know what, we're going to let this flow organically. We're going to let it happen and allow that process, then our momentum would still be high. Yeah. And if it wasn't high, if our momentum wasn't high, let's say our energy equals momentum equals energy. I'm saying the same thing in those two words. So if our energy isn't high because of something might have happened, at least it's not because of our own doing of setting an unrealistic deadline.
This is true.
Because when we set unrealistic deadlines, that's our fault. We can't control anything that happens out in the world. We can't control a natural disaster happening and a power outage. Now we can't, type on our computer or whatever. Anything can happen. That's out of control. But if we can control as much as we can control our situation, one of the things that we can control our situation with is our deadlines that we set for ourselves. And that's huge, because I've been in situations like that where I want something done and I'm running and I got all the momentum in the world to get it done, all the energy. And that one thing happens, slows me down, and then dang, I didn't meet that deadline. And it's not as it doesn't create a sense of urgency anymore.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Kind of just being aware of what we are in control of in our personal lives, because there are things that we can actually control, but then keeping in mind, like, what is completely out of our control, time management,
yeah,
as a whole, just like, and also, the people in our circles, because I don't know, I think maybe you mentioned this before, but like just the power of like working with like-minded people, having a team, and these folks not being on the distraction side of life, like being able to say no, I don't have time for that right now, I'm working on this. Or you don't even need to explain, like, just the power of no, so that you can stay focused on whatever it is that you're trying to achieve for yourself. I think that's huge. And that's what I see happening with you, because I'm like, there's no way, like some of the things that you're doing, and we've talked about offline, like I'm impressed, but there's no way that you can be doing this if you weren't also like very self-aware. And
constantly got to check yourself, because I'm not going to allow anybody on the earth to check me, so I have to check myself. You know what I mean? And no, I'm not going to say I wouldn't allow that, but I mean there's just a certain energy that I invite, and then there's a certain energy that I don't invite, and depending on the situation, that energy that I don't invite I don't ever want to be with that. So I check myself. I check myself. I make sure that, I'm in line with what I say. One mistake I made this year, and I wouldn't even say it's a mistake, but it falls in line with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I ghostwrite projects. So I have this momentum built up for this 8 conversation series because I want to put out 8 conversations to have with your spouse, 8 conversations to have, 8 more conversations to have with your son. I got all kinds of different conversation series that I want to start. But the bad thing, or I'm not even gonna say it was a bad thing, but I took on a ghostwriting project. Or I took on 2 ghostwriting projects, right? And it set me back in my own 8 conversation series. It set me, because I got all these thoughts flowing for it, but I got deadlines that I've set for this ghostwriting project, which we had a mutual thing, which we delayed the process even more for this ghostwriting thing because we want to add some stuff to it. But that now takes more energy from my other projects, and now this prolonged. So it's like I want to get back to doing me. I want to get back to writing for me. So I'm writing every now and then about, as a writer, we are always writing. We're always writing. I don't know, it might not make sense. We might not be able to put it all together at that moment, but
it might be outlines or notes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm still doing that for my other projects, but I haven't really full-fledged on it. And I know that I have some people waiting on some more 8 conversations books. So I even had this conversation with somebody the other day. I said, hold tight, I'm on a ghostwriting project. I got books coming. Don't worry about it, because they bought all my books and they want more. So, but yeah, just that situation,
This is good.
being aware next time. And I'm not going to tackle another, like, I know that now, but I'm new to this. I'm new to ghostwriting. I'm new to this experience of being an author anyway. Like, so, I'm living and learning. And, but the important thing is that I'm not just taking a note and just brushing it off. I'm taking a note and I'm executing this. I'm not going to take on more than I can handle for me.
Good.
So
this is good. And this was part of, when I put this flyer together. I should have mentioned this in the beginning of the interview. I know it might seem like we're all over the place, but the point of this book talk is to see what has been going on with John Martin Sr.'s, these creative projects, these books, the series. We talked about the children's book before, but now we're talking more about, like, the growth since then, the projects that have branched off from these 8 series, 40 jewels, of course. And I want to get into that again real quick before we go, but just kind of the mindset that is required for this kind of this field of work, because it isn't just like you just write a book and you're done with it. Like, you're writing a book, you're thinking, you're brainstorming, you're selling, so you're promoting, you're definitely doing a whole lot of self promotion and marketing your product. But then on top of that, like, you've got a whole team. What is it? Team strong. Like, you've got a marketing.
Yep. Yeah. So on that end, we have a marketing company, and we're super busy with websites and logos like that. So that's another entity. But what I've learned to do with that business is to and I got a good partner with that business. It's when you have a good partner, then anything's possible. But being able to delegate work is incredible. Like, I'm able to delegate more nowadays, so that frees up a lot of my time to handle other projects. So I'm
one moment. My daughter is like, just one moment. I'll be right back.
No problem.
So, what was I saying? Yeah, mindset, staying focused, but not overfilling your basket with too much. Like we said, the whole time management thing, staying focused on what it is that you're trying to achieve and how you're going to get what it is that you want. Like, that was something I wanted to make sure was part of this book talk as well, because you have so much going on, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it yeah, I appreciate that. That it is a good thing. I think that the more busy I am, the better. That's just how my brain works. Like I have to be all over the place.
Yeah. But as long as you're able to, you make it work. But there's guidelines in place, and that's what I want people to get out of this. Is that, like, sure, it might come off as like, all right, aren't you fractured and you shouldn't be focusing on one thing? But in a way, you are focusing on one thing. It's just all of those things come together, creating like a perfect symphony, almost. Like, you know.
It's a part of my purpose, and that's one thing that my dad helped me realize. Like, when he passed, I sat back and I thought about a lot of different things that the directions I want to go, and it just, everything that I'm doing is a part of my purpose. Right. Part of my purpose here on earth. Like, for example, with the Turo business, like with the rental cars, that's a family thing. I got my family involved with it, and we're learning on a whole nother aspect of customer service, rental cars, and all kinds of different things. We're learning, to elevate, and a part of my purpose is to, show that example to my family. So this is perfect. When I'm writing, everything is about helping the next person get through a situation, and that's what all of my writing is about. All intertwined into the same. So I might have about 8 different books going on, but it's all tied up. It all comes centered to helping. So
let me ask you this, because I'm going to let you go soon. I know we've been on here for a while, and thank you for your time again. I just want to know about 40 Jewels, because this was last October, and I'm not saying anything to make you feel a certain way, because I get it. It takes time to put these things together. But it was last October. You were like, yeah, I'm getting into, this 40 Jewels book is coming out next year, and it's been a year, and just released this one. I just want to talk about, like, what writing 40 Jewels, and how long did it take you? What were some of the steps that were involved in putting this together? Because I know you've written 8 series and it kind of led you into 40 Jewels, but like, maybe I can better explain what I'm trying to ask you by just, I looked at this post on Instagram, and it was, and I know your novel's more, it's autobiographical. So, you've got real life events mixed in with storytelling or anecdotal storytelling. Like, how can we just talk a little bit about what that looked like for you over the course of last year?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start by saying that my goal was to have it out spring of 2021, and I met it. I put it out. What was it? June? I think I did. I put it out July 1st. That's what happened. So and my pops, he died in April. So but let's go before that. The process was, I already had these in my head. I already, like, these are my lessons that I've learned. So it wasn't hard for me to put it all together. What it was hard for me to do was to narrow it down to 40.
Really?
Yeah, because I was thinking, so since I put the 40 out, I said, oh man, I said, there's so many different things, like, which topics am I going to discuss? Right. That's what, but I already had it in my head, like the comfortable situation that I gave you earlier. Like, that really was something that stuck with me over the years. Like, I think about that often, about being comfortable, and that situation that was a turning point for me. Like, that lesson, I learned that immediately. So it wasn't hard for me to think about that. Like, so a lot of this stuff I've already written notes on. I've already thought about it. So just putting the organization of it, just putting it all together, that was like the most lengthy of the process. But
I can see it.
but when I figured out how to break it down into two parts, that made it easier. That made that process easier, because I focused on, in part one, I focused on more of like the like I said, the maneuvering, the relationships with other people, you
Yeah.
know, the business aspect of it. But now in part two, like I said, I'm going back towards my childhood and a lot of different things. But but everything's right here. Like, it's in my head. Like, I could spit off 40 of them for you.
Yeah.
So it's not anything that I had to like dig deep for.
Yeah.
You know, I think about all this stuff.
Yeah. Did you have to get I'm sure you had an editor at some point in this process, like when you were
Hmm.
ready to release it and everything. You,
Hmm.
you had an editor. What was
Oh yeah.
that? What was that process like? I'm just curious for myself, to be honest.
Oh yeah. So I have three different editors. They I think it's important. Anytime you put out anything, I think it's important to get three different looks. I think it's important to get uh, grammar,
Yeah.
flow, and punctuality, obviously. But you need somebody to read it for concepts, for depth wise,
Yeah.
and you also need someone to read it to, someone that doesn't know you,
Yeah. Of course.
because um, when you're talking about yourself, you want somebody that doesn't know you to read it and then give you feedback on what they think. And um, I think that's extremely important. Anytime that you're writing about yourself, like, just get somebody that doesn't know you. Hire a professional editor to really look over your stuff.
That's good advice, actually. And I like that. I like the way you broke that down too. Like, it's a three-sided thing, but
Hmm.
having someone look at the obvious,
Yeah,
grammar, style, but also just the delivery. Like,
mhm,
how did it come out? How's the concept and writing? So that's very helpful. I'm sure
yeah,
that helps to someone who's probably in the midst of writing a novel right now, because it is for me. It helps
yeah.
me.
When, like, for editing, what I really feel is that you can go over your writing and um, just correct the certain things that you see.
Mm,
But very important to not be the end all be all. Like, you have to have other people reading your work, because what it's supposed to say. When you're reading your work, you know what it's supposed to say, and you know how you want it to sound, and you know this and that about it. And you're setting yourself up for failure if you're just allowing that one perspective, because
mm.
um, when you put it out, you're gonna miss so many errors. You're gonna miss everything. Like, it's
Once it's
crazy.
it's out there and it's up for interpretation and any
Yeah.
sort of, like, feedback. And you just have to take it,
Mm-hmm.
because you gave it out, you gave it away to the public, and now it's for them to judge.
Mm-hmm.
True, so true. Let's talk as we close out here. A
Okay.
little bit, 40 Jewels. Just what does it look like now? Because you just released this one, and
Mm-hmm.
I know you have many other projects and books on the horizon. What are you doing primarily for pushing and marketing this one? How are you?
For this one, I haven't really went heavy yet, and I'm not going to go heavy yet until I put out part two.
Oh wow.
So a lot of these books, the part one, with this one, um, a lot of people that are buying it right now are people that have been waiting on it, and people that have that's already like in my circle, that's already that have bought books before. So this is pretty much um, I've hit my core audience with this.
Yeah.
Now, when I put out part two, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a package, and I'm just gonna really start hitting it hard then
Of
with
course.
because um, I just want to wait until I'm done with that, and I don't want to put a lot of marketing into it right now because I'm ghostwriting this other project. So once I get that done, then I'm going full-fledged with this right here. But I got the feedback that I needed to hear from my audience, and now I know the direction to go once I'm ready. But it's going to be a couple months. It's going to be a couple months. Giving myself to December to finish this other project up. And the thing about me ghostwriting is with this particular person, I'm just writing the book. I'm not doing any marketing behind it. So once I release the book to this person, I'm right back to this. As opposed to the other ghostwriting client I have, I'm writing their book plus marketing. So once I'm done with, then I'm creating the website. I'm doing the social media management on the page. I'm creating all kinds of different things. So that's going to bring a lot, or that's going to take a lot more energy from me. But this particular project, I'm just writing it. I'm having it edited. I'm doing the book cover, and then I'm just handing it over to that person. So.
Of course. Wow, you have a lot going on, but at the same time, this has been a really good talk because you have at least explained just how important it is for you to make sure that you are aware of everything that you have going on, all the moving parts, setting realistic goals and deadlines. And I really like your angle for how you've released 40 Jewels, but you've done so in a way where it's like you've already built brand awareness. Like people know about, the children's book, then leading into your book series, and then 40 Jewels. Like people were anticipating 40 Jewels.
Yeah.
I was anticipating 40 Jewels back when you mentioned it last year. I thought of it earlier this year, like, oh, he's probably released that book already that he was talking about. That kind of, building your just your brand is really important, because now people are already knowing what you have to come out, what's coming. You don't have to put so much energy into marketing that new authors have to do. It's really
thank you. I still feel like I'm at the entry level, and I still feel like I really do need to push the book series more. But I like to do it face to face. I like interaction. I like taking a bundle of my book. Like I got a bundle of my books right now, and I'm about to go out on the strip and just talk to people. Just and I know the strip is not the ideal place, but that's where I'm at. So obviously that's what I'm gonna do. Like for example, when I went and I just posted about this. I worked out yesterday or not yesterday, but when I flew in the day before, I went to the workout facility here at the hotel, and I just laid out 10 of my books as I'm working out. So nobody knows that they're my books. I'm just working out, doing all the machines, this and that. But I'm watching people just pick up my books, look at them, take them with them, this and that. And I left with 5. So there was 5 people that left there was 4 people that left, because the one lady, she took 2 of the books. She took the co-parent book and the daughter book.
Wow.
So I just had a variety of books just sitting there. But that's just one little aspect of like every moment that I'm in, I'm promoting. But I'm doing it more on a grassroots level. I'm doing it more on a personal level, and it's not just for social media. Like for example, my tour renters, when they rent a car, they get a book from me. It's just, and then I get reviews from that. Like I just got a review from a guy in San Diego, which I actually rented his car. And I said, man, thank you. I want you to read this. And he read it and gave me a review, ended up buying another book from me too. So it's more of that approach. Like a lot of the stuff that I do marketing wise now is not for the world to see, I guess. It's for me to be more penetrated.
Yeah, I like it. I looked up, I was filling out a grant the other day, and they were like, what's your primary way of like spreading word about your business? And this word bootstrapping came up. Do you know the bootstrapping? Or maybe I may be misusing that word. I don't even know. But like, it's basically what you just now explained, as far as like getting out there on the ground, you're talking to people, you're telling them about who you are, how you got to where you are, and the products and services that you're providing for the people. It's like
Yeah.
you are the mouthpiece. You know, you're not just completely 100% reliant on these platforms like Amazon and
Yeah. I don't ever want to be that guy that
want to
just
get comfortable.
love that. I would love to be able to have like 1 million subscribers and this and that, but on my journey to that, I gotta still be out here. I'm not at that level yet, so I gotta still be out here moving around. Like I'm getting a lot more speaking gigs too. So when I come and speak, I mean that's a big way to that I'm selling my books too. So I spoke yesterday at UNLV at a leadership conference, and I had quite a bit of people you know, interact with me, and I gained a lot from that. So
Good.
I'm just blessed able to be put in situations where my writing is taking me places, and I got to remember that I still have to be in tune on social media too. I got to remember that, but it's as much as my presence is kind of, at one point that's all it was social media.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like everything else is growing too. So my social media presence is slowly, gradually declining. So
you're busy.
I don't know if that's a good thing though. I don't know yet. I don't know if that's a good thing or not,
I think it is. I think it's the evolution of your business, to be honest, because you're now at a point, it seems, where you built so much that like it's time for you to, you know, build your team. You're at now you have a team, but it sounds like it's time to expand and scale that end of your business or entrepreneurial duties. So
definitely. You know, there's a lot of decisions I want to make going forward with how to grow this, like, because I'm not sure, and along my journey, I'm definitely gonna make it to where I discuss it. So you'll be definitely in tune with the moves I make too. You know, I'll make sure that people know, but I'm learning too. So.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's a never ending journey. We said we shared a message the other day, like, you know, learning that it's on, and that's a good thing. So I'm worried. I'm like you though. I'm just I feel like, yeah, sure, I've put a few books out there, but I'm still learning. I'm learning the ropes of this entire industry, like navigating the publishing and even the media industry is like, it's a monster. There's a lot to learn.
When people say they're experts of certain topics and this and that, I really challenge that nowadays, because man, things go fast. Like you have to really be on top of everything that comes out in your industry. I mean, you got to eat, sleep, and live certain things, you know, if you claim to be an expert on something. And I just think, you know, a lot of times nowadays it's just not feasible. It's not practical, and it doesn't make sense to be an expert in certain things. It does make sense to be an expert on how you move and how you figure out how to work things that works in your life. That's what I feel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, on that note, as far as yourself, I'm really looking forward to getting my book, 8 Conversations to Have with Yourself, because I already know it's going to be meaningful for me, especially at this particular juncture of life. And for Jules, because, you know, I'm inspired. I'm inspired by you because you started with children's books and kind of, you know, you've gone through this phase of writing books and to put out a novel, life story, like autobiographical kind style novel. I would really like to do something like this. And anyone who's watching, I really hope that you got something. I know you got something out of this, because you dropped so many jewels. You dropped so many tips for aspiring authors and realistic ones. So I think people will get something out of this. This is a really good book talk. So thank you.
One thing I do want to say real quick is like the typical author has millions of different ideas that go on, and we have so many things that go on in our heads, along with different life situations that happen. I would definitely suggest that anytime somebody comes out with a book, is to leave it open-ended to where you can make it a series. You can make it part 1, part 2, part 3, and evolve and have people grow with you that way. Because a book is just one little thing, but your brand, like if you're a brand, then your story is a and you could take people along that story with you. And if you don't cap it off to where you got only this book, you can grow you could grow your brand. Basically, you can grow it by putting a series out and really taking people through that process.
Yes, I do agree. I think that that's a really good point, actually. So, and I've noticed a few people, at least in the Instagram or Bookstagram world, I've noticed a whole slew of authors who are starting to do this series thing, because it's worthwhile. Once you put one book out there, you get excited about it. I think most authors are just excited and proud of themselves. That's a huge accomplishment. Like, so many people say they want to write a book, they want to, do this, but they always they'll sit on that for a while. So once you actually do it, you put it out there and you see some feedback, you're usually, I don't know, energized to do it again and again and again. So
just like when we end this conversation, this booklet, I'm gonna probably process this and think, man, I should have said this, or I should have said that, because about right, or you might even be like, man, I should have asked him this. So leave it open ended. There's always a part 3 or a part 4. You know what I mean? So you can keep it going, and that's how I feel life is. Man, we're life learners, we're life students, and I can learn from anybody. So I can't wait for my 50 jewels to come out so I can share what I learned from this perspective or from this person over here when that time comes, because there's definitely going to be some more stories that arise.
Nice. Foreshadowing. We're talking about the future here, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's a good way to end this book talk, because this is us following up to a previous one with John Martin Sr. So for us to reunite in this, talk about this process, I'm already looking forward to the next one, because I definitely want to do this again, perhaps a year from now or whenever. It doesn't even matter when, but I know there's someone that I would like to remain in contact with, and others too. They may see like, wow, okay, let me get in on this this fellow's writing journey. So
here for it all. So let's get it. Let's keep this going.
That's true. Perfect. I'm so happy that we did this. Thank you again. And let's get together, remain in contact with some of these projects, because I'm interested in a lot of things that you're doing for myself. And I hope
we'll talk about the next play that I propose to you as well.
Nice.
Sometime week or so. Let's touch base on that too.
Yes, please. Nice. Okay. Well, you enjoy your day out there, your books to the streets. I'm so proud of you for doing that. You're great.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. And thanks again, John. You have a great day. All right.
All right. See you next time.
See you. Bye.